that way, if you imagine it being pulled from over there. This rope is the head rope of the net and it's attached to the beam. The foot rope of the net is this U-shaped, it's made of wire, this U-shaped wire with rubber bobbins on it, and the net is actually attached to it with little bits of chain that go around the wire. Which means that the bottom of the net isn't just attached straight across, it's all the way back here for reasons that I'll get to. It's very long and tapered, a bit like the plankton net that we had, and that's a good shape. It means there's a long bit of netting. Any fish that get into the back are going to be constricted together and they can't swim out. And this is the cod end, complete with a special cod end knot. The best thing about the cod end knot is when it's got a big heavy catch of fish in it, you can release it very, very quickly just by pulling on the ends. It's relatively simple to retie.
How long is the whole net?
The whole net is, I'm going to say 4 meters. I haven't ever measured it, but it's 1.5 meters wide. It's 1.5 meter beam. Let's say 4 meters long. The mesh size is 20 millimeters, and if you just all look at the mesh a minute, it's rigged what we call diamond mesh. So if you have a look, you see it's diamond shaped mesh. Come a bit closer so you can see. I don't believe that you can see from out there. Diamond shaped. If you pull on diamond mesh, look what happens. Ooh. It collapses to being very, very small. So this is much finer than any commercial net would be allowed to fish with. If you rigged this mesh the other way at 90 degrees, you would call it square mesh. And if you see what happens to square mesh when you pull it, just by rigging it that way, it doesn't collapse. So the holes stay the same size. Now, if you want to put a panel in your net for conservation purposes, you could put some sections of square mesh of big mesh size that would stay squares and open, even with the net under tension, that would potentially allow undersized fish out. So there are all sorts of methods like that to promote sustainable fishing. I'm not convinced how well they work, but
yeah,
but
there's special kind of like doorways for letting out
yeah, and there are special panels that are supposed to allow
turtle excluded devices,
animals out that you don't want to catch, but whether or not they work brilliantly well, I don't know.
What did you say the beach diamond was? Like 20 mil?
20 mil. Now to measure that, you stretch the diamond out and you measure the length there, so it's each one is 20 millimeters that way.
okay.
So you think 20 mil, that's actually quite big mesh, but it would only, even if you measured it like that, that's only like 10 mil, I should think. If you measured it with it rigged square like that, I think that would only count as 10 or 12 mil, I'm not sure. But it counts as 20 mil that way. What you do is you put a tapered stick in that's got lines on it. That's what a net gauge looks like. It's a tapered stick, like a thin triangle, and you push it in until it won't go any further and read the line off that it's got to, and that would be 20 mil on that one. Okay, how old is this technology? When did we start using beam trawls? Earlier than that. Let's go century. So it wasn't the 19th century, it wasn't the 17th, it wasn't the 15th. We know from a letter to the king in 1370 that fishermen along the south coast were complaining about this newfound, they called it a wonder tune, whatever the hell that is. You can read about it online. And they were worried that the beam trawl was causing extensive damage and destroying the fishes, you know, where they lived, the habitat. And we haven't really learned. 600 years later, we're still doing it. This is a very light trawl. Where we're going to go is extensively dredged. It's already perturbed. We're not going to be trawling up any long-lived, delicate communities of organisms like sea fans or soft corals or anything. It's soft sediment where we're going. It's fairly mobile. So this is a very small, very light trawl, and we're going to do little short tows with it. So hopefully our impact is minimal and we'll get everything back alive once we've had a look at it. The salient point of when it was invented was, what did we pull trawls with in 1370? Sails. We had sailing trawlers which couldn't go very far when they're pulling a net. So this gear was only ever designed to go slowly, and it was really designed for catching flatfish, which can only swim slowly and tend not to swim away. So this is going back to this asymmetric nature of this net, this U-shaped bottom rope being all the way back here, means that, and it has this other feature called a tickler chain. Make sure you put safe search on Google before you actually look for that. And the idea is that this chain is going to bump along, and any flatfish that are trying to hide because they're well camouflaged and just hunkering down and hoping predators aren't going to see them or this noisy thing doesn't get them, this chain just, it doesn't smash them up, it just makes them come up off the bottom. And they're already in the net. There's this asymmetric nature of the net, having this U shape to the foot rope means that the fish are already in the net if they wait until the last minute rather than trying to swim away. But it does mean that we won't get a lot of species of fish that I know are common in Plymouth Sound. Any round fish, so to speak, like bass, cod, pollock, wrasses, these kind of things, we only occasionally catch in this net. We'll get very slow moving demersal fish with this net, but we will get a whole load of other phyla as well, so we'll get loads of cool stuff. That's all about the symmetry of it. I've told you about the cod end, I've shown you the cod end knot. One thing that you often find with sampling equipment is, if you look at how this is attached, on one side I've tied a knot with the full strength of the rope here, and this side it's just attached with a few turns of string. That, I mean, I've obviously done it deliberately, but why have I done that? Yeah, what's going to happen? This, hopefully, if this gets snagged, one side's going to break first. We've never tested it. I suspect that side will break first, but I don't know. Maybe 4 turns of that is stronger than 1 turn of that. But the idea is, say I got it caught here, my legs are rock, you pull hard and hard and hard, this side's going to snap, and it's going to allow the net to kind of rotate around the rock by just being pulled from one side. So it's an aid to recovery. It's a weak link. You'll see it on all sorts of gear. If you're going to make a drawing of it in your books, just put one side of it is attached as a weak link. That asymmetric nature makes it very efficient. Is it going to be super reliable? Is it going to be reliable being asymmetric like that? What does it mean if it's asymmetric? What's really important for it to work?
It stays the same shape the whole way.
It stays the same shape the whole way, but not only the same shape, the same side. It could easily end up upside down, couldn't it? We're only going out in 12 metres of water here. If you want to deploy this net in 1,000 metres of water, where it might take a couple of hours for it to get to the bottom and 3 or 4 hours to winch it back up again, it could easily end up upside down, and you've got no way of telling if it's just spinning on the rope going down. So there are types of sampling gear that you use in deep water that are symmetrical. So it basically has a thin bar as a beam, and it has one both sides, and the net bag is attached to it. Oh, a ring dredge? What?
No, it wasn't ring. It was rectangular. Because one of the
like a
surveys I was
naturalist,
on, they
like
were
a
doing
naturalist.
like a naturalist. Yeah, it's not really beach.
There are various gear that are symmetrical, so they lose that efficiency. They're not quite as efficient at catching some sorts of things that can move out of the way, but they're very reliable, and you will always get a catch. I think I've said.
Yeah, I think you've got everything.
I think I've got everything. Let's go and use it. So we're going to go out to behind the breakwater. It's been very, very rough out there this morning. You'll need a sense of humour going out there. What I suggest is you're all in coats and things. If we move the life jacket bag, 2 or 3 of you can sit there. A couple more